Nadim Khouri from the World Bank. No, he's an independent consultant, worked in the World Bank, but also a consultant for ADAFSA. And Nadim will speak about, I will let him introduce the financial instrument for planning and marketing. And we are speaking about finance. Nadim, we have 10 minutes. I know that we are going to be, because we need time to discuss all whatever you say. Okay? It's your word.
Yes, thank you very much. Can you hear me? Hassan, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Very good. Thank you very much. Greetings to everyone. As Hassan said, I will not be talking in detail, but I'm hoping that you will have a copy of this presentation, as there are quite a few references. I will not go into in detail. I want to build on the excellent presentation that Kate gave and focus on one of the preparations, what we do in preparing for a crisis, building on some examples of my own professional experience, which is at the, which is at the interface of the private and public financing. So I've worked mainly in development, and the areas that I want to, or the questions that I want to address in this presentation are basically around 5 questions. Even in the present crisis of COVID and other, is poultry an important sector? Should we continue trying to convince our funders, private, public, others, that it's a good sector to be marketing in? Second, are some of the lessons that we learned from development interventions of importance to the private sector? Third, what are there types of crisis financing that the private sector can take advantage of? And then how do we interface these two through something that is called blended finance? And finally, the importance of internalizing risk, again, as Kate said, in preparation for a crisis. In answer to the first question, is it a sector that is important even during crisis? Here are the results of a study in the US that shows that even with the COVID-19 crisis, one of the winner sectors has been in frozen food, processed food, eggs in particular, because of the food security aspect of it. I will not go into some of the loser sectors, but it definitely shows that your sector is an important one. This was in the US. This complicated graph shows more or less the same thing in Egypt. It's by a firm, EFC, that did studies trying to see ahead of time what would be, so this was March 2020, what would be the impact on various sectors. Of course, tourism was supposed to be a potential loser. If you see here food processing already, they were thinking that most probably food processing, and you are part of it, would be a high performer. a year later, they went back to their assumptions and saw that actually food processing was one of the sectors that gained during the crisis. So all of this to say that, yes, marketing is important as long as you internalize the risk. There are funders who will be interested in funding your sector. This is the various sources of funding. You probably know all of this more than I do. And basically, I want to say that this is one of the examples where what we have learned in development finance is very much applicable to crisis funding. If you replace here the non-commercial with the degree of crisis, the more you have crisis and the less you have crisis here. The more you have crisis, the more private firms want to rely on public sector grants and others, and the more there is normal situation, the more you have then the commercial funding that is there. You will see here that area of crisis preparation that I call blended finance. And this is the one where the private and public ways of funding through crisis is important. That graph is quite an important one. It summarizes the way from the World Bank, from other agencies, and commercial terms. If yes, then that's it. We stop here and the commercial banks can take care of it. If no, can we work with the governments to change some of the rules so that the private sector can do that? If yes, then we stop here. And then, then in case, can we use public or concessional finance in innovative ways to mitigate the crisis? This is where the blended financing comes in. If all of this do not work, that's where we go to public financing. Many times in crisis, we see private companies, firms, sectors move directly from here, no, we cannot do it, and ask for public finance. As you know, governments are all broke, whether in our region or in developing countries or developed countries. And it's impossible that the government is going to save every single firm during problem times and crises. These are the blended financing for that can be considered for during crisis. And this whole graph just says that there is an advantage in the government supporting these private firms because eventually it leads to sustainable overall economic development and improved quality of life. We can talk about these types of financing more in detail, but they go from loans to guarantees and risk sharing when the crisis hits, so that if there are arrangements for guarantees for insurance and others, they can kick in at that time, or equity, where a public or a development agency actually has equity in your business and can help you shoulder the losses during the crisis. As was said before in the previous introductions, we are talking here, this is an example of the International Finance Corporation helping a firm that prepares feed. The reason for this slide is just to tell you that out of helping one firm, you are helping the whole chain. And in particular, you are helping the small poultry producers you're helping also the small dealers who are supplying you with your material for the feed. So this is where the social and private benefits are very clear. And again, this is the case for Nepal on IFC support. You are supporting through one firm many of the whole supply chain. The next three slides are on the question of internalizing risk. I will just move on very quickly to what was said before about who's going to accept and the whole flow of funding. IFC has developed a whole very specific list of questions of making sure that your firms are ready for risks before a lending agency, a credit can be given to your agencies. I will not go through the list, but it's a very...
And timing. Are you hearing me? Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, because we're facing some internet interruption and also some timing problem. Can you please give us some conclusions in spite of these slides? Sorry to, I know that 10 minutes are not enough, but we need to jump to the discussion.
Yes, yes, certainly. So the conclusions I was getting to are in response to the questions I put at the beginning, and to assure you that from the data that I have seen, the poultry subsector as part of the overall agri-food sector is worth continued marketing and risk investment. Second, the lessons from development investment can be applied to the understanding and design of instruments for de-risking of investments in the poultry sector. Third, there are variable public sector benefits to mitigating private risk, thus justifying private-public partnerships and blended financing. But most important is to first ensure that all is done to internalize the risks as much as possible within enterprise. And I hope that this will give some inputs into the debate that is coming up with in your discussions. And as I said, there is a whole list of references for those who would like to go a bit more in detail. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Nadim, for this clear introduction and hence conclusion that we're going to benefit from it.